Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This is the first lecture of interim restorations. Let me explain the interim restoration through an example of this particular patient who contacted me for the restoration of his missing mandibular first molar. So I decided to proceed with a fixed partial denture. As per rule, I prepared mesial and distal abutments, gave an impression, and sent that impression along with a prescription to the dental lab for the fabrication of fixed partial denture. At this stage, my question is it fair to leave this patient as such? Mean to say, for this transient period of 7 to 10 days, in which patient is waiting uh, for a definitive fixed partial denture to be fabricated by dental lab. Don't you think that patient will be feeling sensitivity to hot and cold? Because both mesial and distal abutments are vital. Second to that, there is ample chance that these particular two teeth, which are being prepared by me, will will show some horizontal as well as vertical movement. What to do next? Here in this case, we need temporary fixed partial denture to be fabricated and to be cemented immediately at that particular time, so that uh, underlying abutment it should not get thermal trauma, particularly the pulp portion. Patient will not be feeling hot and cold sensation. Secondly, the teeth which I have prepared with the proximal as well as occlusal clearance will remain in static position. So this is what the basic benefit of temporary crown or fixed partial denture is. According to Residential, we have to consider certain considerations regarding interim fixed restorations, and we again classify it into biological, mechanical, and aesthetic consideration. Now, one by one, I'll be explaining these in detail. First of all, biological consideration or requirements related to interim restoration. Foremost is pulpal protection. It should be having insulating effect, means preventing sensitivity and further irritation to the underlying pulp. Secondly, it should be having beneficial effect on periodontal health. Mean to say, it should be of such material. It should be fabricated of such material which facilitate plaque removal. Second, it should have good marginal fit, proper contour, and smooth like this. If it is having a zig margin like in this situation, so obviously it would be a food catchment area or plaque or debris would be entangled in this particular position, which could lead to periodontal problem in future. So ideally it should be well smooth or having smooth margins. Then it should prevent enamel fracture. Mean to say, it should be having a sheltering effect over the underlying prepared tooth stump. Second, the fourth one is occlusal compatibility and tooth positioning. It should maintain proper contacts with the adjacent as well as opposing teeth. Inadequate contacts could lead to supra-eruption and horizontal movements. So it should ideally be in contact with the adjacent, means having reasonably intact contact, proximal contacts, and as well as occlusal contact with the opposing tooth. So it should provide occlusal stability. If it is not providing appropriate proximal contact, so we could have such type of horizontal movement of the prepared tooth stump. This is already being discussed. Now, mechanical consideration or requirements. Foremost, as we have discussed the mechanical considerations related to a definitive restoration, it should provide appropriate retention as well as resistance to lateral dislodgement. In addition, it should be strong enough to bear the brunt of occlusal load and provide appropriate or at least reasonable dental functions. Then it should and this particularly is important in relation to fixed partial denture, which is entirely fabricated and cemented. It should be having Optimum occlusal cervical height of connector, which prevent its fracture at the connector portion between pontic and retainer. Then it should resist removal forces. We may need to remove the interim restoration for say for example for trial purpose of definitive restoration, and then we want to replace for or reposition the same interim restoration in certain situations for further 2 to 3 days, so it should able to resist removal forces and can be reutilized at next time or till definitive restoration being fabricated by the lab. Then it should maintain inter-abutment alignment. Last is aesthetic requirements or consideration. Foremost is easy contourability, or it should be of such material that could be contourable according to the requirement of aesthetic and function. Then its color compatibility, that it should ideally be matchable to the adjacent teeth. Okay, say for example, in this case, lateral incisor we prepare to have or to we prepare to fabricate uh, all ceramic crown for this lateral incisor. So during this interim 7 to 10 days, it's better to have such type of restoration. Which ideally be as matchable to the adjacent one, so patient can able to or comfortably utilize it for aesthetic as well as other functions. Then its color stability, ideally it should be color stable, particularly during the use of hot and cold uh, liquids, or you could say tea or coffee use. Then its translucency is most important. It should be translucent enough to simulate the adjacent tooth shape. With this, we came to the end of this lecture 1 related to interim restoration.